Welcome everybody. How are you doing today? So very nice to have you here. And today I wanted to speak a little more about our upcoming 2-week intensive, Beyond the Mind, Finding Permanence in Emptiness and Love. There's this very powerful quote from Nisargadatta Maharaj. When I know I am nothing, that's emptiness. When I know I'm everything, that is love. And between those two, my attention moves. So emptiness and love, these two very powerful aspects of our true nature. And what is really the meaning of that? When I know I'm nothing, that's emptiness. When I know I'm everything, that's love. It's so important to remember and understand, because sometimes we can get stuck in one or the other, or in the belief that one or the other is it, and nothing is it, right? And so we need both. We need to be able to really recognize the emptiness of everything. But we also need to be able to recognize the no separation and no difference and the uniform nature of everything, which love really is. It's the same as Papaji used to speak about the importance of knowledge, which is inquiry, which is, knowing directly our true nature, and the importance of devotion. And I will be speaking a little more about devotion again in these 2 weeks, because he used to say, it's like two wings of a bird. A bird can't fly by one wing alone. So we need the discrimination, we need the focus, we need the, inquiry, but we also need devotion, because devotion softens us. It opens your heart. Devotion brings a different quality. Sometimes a practice that is devoid of devotion can become a little dry, a little hard, a little, I often speak about this when I say, we really need tenderness. Practice without tenderness, we're not going to get too far, when we are inquiring in a very harsh or judgmental way. Discrimination and judgment are not one and the same. So what is the meaning of when I know I'm nothing, that's emptiness? Because so much of our sense of identity is really tied into the belief in permanence of objects, permanence of this body, the permanence of the mind or the sense of I, and not just permanence, but also the solidity of that, the solidity of this body, the solidity of I and mind, same thing, and the solidity of objects in general. So much of our identity, consciously or not, and you can check on that right now, so much of our sense of identity is based on that, on the permanence of this, on the solidity of that. And so, it's a very different experience when we experience presence directly, when we know that there is that emptiness that underlies everything, that really is the substratum of everything, that really is the essence from which everything arises. That's where mind arises from. That's where I, body, arises from. That's where the mind's projection arises from. That creates the experience of this life or experience of this world. So it's a very, very powerful recognition. And of course we need that, right? We need that because otherwise the mind is still going to be searching, as long as there is not a very direct recognition of our true nature, the mind is still looking. It's looking for something, but once we know this directly, then we know this is who we are. And yet we don't want to stop here, right? As Papaji was saying, inquiry or knowledge and devotion, and so emptiness and love, right? Because we don't want to stop here. Otherwise, sometimes people believe that's it, and that becomes rigid, and that becomes hard. And whenever there's hardness, whenever there's, solidification again, if I can invent a word, then there is no presence anymore, right? There is no rest. So love is when we recognize that everything is the same. That nothing is really different from who you are. Yes, there may be different shapes and different colors and different appearance and different this and that. So when we look at it from the perspective of the mind externally, yeah, we can see difference. We can see things are different. But when we look from within, when we look from the recognition of presence, then we see that, there is really no difference, right? That everything is the same. And what does it mean even more? Everything is the same means there is no separation. That what the mind perceives, the mind senses, the perception that really creates a sense of separateness, what the mind perceives, that's just a perception. And in reality, in truth, there is no difference, there is no separation. And so in that sense, that love is natural. And it's different than our, personal or human, personal, emotional love or romantic love, Not that that's wrong, but it's just different, right? That's very, very different. What's different about that is that everything is who you are. So that recognition doesn't choose or doesn't separate or doesn't see this better than that. That's why sometimes we call it universal, right? Universal love. And it's very powerful when we allow that to be here. When we really, for a moment, or for so many moments, stop living in a world by what we experience through the mind. And when we begin to live in a world from what we really know is true, and we see the reality of all experience, and that is not just sentient beings that are same and not separate. That is everything. Everything in its nature, it's emptiness and love. So I want to invite you into this 2-week intensive to once again experientially touch on this and spend a little more time together this year in finding permanence in what is always here. And the only permanence that we can find. And that is finding permanence in emptiness and in love.